Okay, welcome back to Microsoft Excel. This is Chapter 2, and we are working on the Hypermass salary report. And this is part 2 of the video. In the first video, we entered in all of our data, and we figured out what we're going to be doing with it. And in this video, we're going to be entering in our formulas. And formulas is what makes Excel so great, is because the formula will do the math for you, and if you ever have to change any number over here, your formula will automatically recalculate itself. So looking at our spreadsheet, the first thing we want to find is gross pay. Gross pay, if you don't know, is how much you're actually earning. Not the amount you get to take home, not the amount your paycheck's for, but how much you have earned. So what would I do if I wanted to find the gross pay? I would take my hours worked, which is 60.45 hours for Michael, times his hourly rate, which is $19.50. And you could do that on your calculator, but if you do it on your calculator, you're going to have to do it for each individual person. And next time you do a salary report, you're going to have to manually figure it. The great thing about entering the formula is it's going to calculate it for us here. We already learned in the last chapter that we can autofill that down so we don't have to do every single person. But what we can do is next time we do a salary, all we have to do is change the name on this report, go in, and assuming that his hourly rate is still the same, all we have to do is change his hours worked and our report is done. We would have to type in whatever that is, 6, 7 different numbers, and we would be done for that report. So for the gross pay, how do we tell Excel we want to do a formula? What is the magic button? Right, we're going to press the equal key. Equal tells Excel that, hey, we're ready to enter a formula so that you're going to do the math for us. If you don't type the equal sign, it's not going to know to do the math. Then we're going to, a couple different ways, we could either type in the cell address, which is C4 for our hours worked, but the best way to do that is to just go ahead and click on C4. That way you're not as likely to make an error. And you'll notice that again it's color coordinating it, so this C4 is blue along with the box around this one. And what are we going to do with the hours worked? What kind of math do we want to do? Right, we want to multiply. So on your keyboard, we're going to type the multiplication button. The multiplication on a keyboard in Excel is listed as an asterisk. You can get that on your number pad, it's above the number 9. Or on your regular keyboard, you're going to find that with Shift 8. So we've got equal C4, which is our hours worked, times, what are we multiplying the hours worked by? Right, by the hourly rate. So I'm just going to click here on the hourly rate, which is in cell D4. So C4 times D4. Does that look like it would give us the gross pay? We're taking the hours worked, times the hourly pay rate. Yes, it does, so I'm going to press Enter. Okay, next I'm going to go over, instead of filling that one down, we're going to wait and do all the fill at the end because there is a shortcut. So I'm going to figure my federal sales tax. Now we're going to get into a more complicated formula. One thing you need to know before you're doing a complex formula is order of operations. And I hope you guys have all learned this in your math class, but an order of operations is first you do anything, the negation, then you're going to do all percentages, then all exponents, then all multiplication, division, and then finally your addition and your subtraction. Now you can change your order of operation by putting parentheses around things. And the order of operations is important because if you don't list your order of operations correctly, then your number's not going to be correct. For example, 8 times 3 plus 2 with no parentheses would equal what? Well, first I would take my 8 times 3, which would be 24, plus 2, which would be 26. But if I went in, and I'll just show you that down here randomly, don't type this, but if my formula was 8 times 3 plus 2, okay, you'll notice without an equal sign it didn't do any math, it just left it there like it was text. So I would take my 8 times 3, which was 24, plus my 2 would give me a 26. But if I rewrote the formula so that it was 8 times and I put my 3 plus 2 in parentheses, I would then need to do my addition first because it was in parentheses. So here I would take my 3 plus 2, which is 5, and then my 5 times 8, which is going to give me the answer of 40. So you can see how the same numbers and the same multiplication and addition is going to give me different answers based on the order of operations. Okay, so I'll delete that out and we'll go back up here and we're ready to do our federal tax, and we are in cell F4. The federal tax may seem a little complicated, but whenever you're dealing with the federal government and taxes, things are not usually straightforward. So what you need to do to figure a federal tax is you would take your gross pay. First of all, you're going to take the number of dependents you have times $24.32, because according to this Excel spreadsheet, the government is giving us a $24.32 credit per dependent. So I would take my $24.32 times my number of dependents, and that number would be subtracted from my gross pay, which we just calculated, and then I would multiply that whole thing by 0.22 because we're paying 22%. And so the easiest way to write a percent in Excel is to change it over to a decimal, which would be 0.22. So we'll go ahead and look at this one. So I want to start a formula. I'm going to use the magic equal sign. Okay, and I said I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 0.22. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 0.22 times, we're going to use our order of operations, so I'm going to use parentheses, the gross pay minus my dependents times 24.32. And you always have to have a closed parenthesis if you have an open one. So let's look at what this is going to do. First of all, we have a parenthesis, so we have to start there. Okay, in our parentheses, we have a minus and a multiplication. So we're going to do the multiplication first, which is going to take the number of dependents worked times 24.32. And we're going to subtract that answer from E4, which was our gross pay. So far, that sounds good. And we're going to take that answer we got, and we're going to multiply it by 22%, or 0.22. So this formula is set up correctly. Your order of operations is essential to make it work. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Okay, then I can look at this and I can see, does it make sense? If your federal tax is higher than your gross pay, then you probably didn't do it right. Even though the federal government likes to take a lot of money for tax, they don't take more than you have earned. So just look at it and see if it makes sense. Then we're ready to do our state tax. The state tax is a lot simpler. It's just 4% of our gross pay. So it's just a simple multiplication. So to do a formula, I press what? Okay, equal. 4%, I would type as 0.04 times my gross pay. Here's my gross pay located in cell E4, and press enter. Okay, this one was 22%, this was 4%, our gross pay was here. Does that look about right? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, next we want to find out what percent of the total money we earned is going to go to taxes. It's kind of a depressing number sometimes whenever you look at it. So to do that, we would be taking, how would we figure that? Don't worry about Excel and formulas, but if I want to know what percentage these two numbers took out of my gross pay, how would I do it? I would probably add my two taxes together to figure out how much tax I was paying total. And then I would take that number and I would divide it by my gross pay so that I could get the percentage of tax being paid. So in Excel, we'll do it. What do I start with? Right, an equal sign. And I'm going to start by adding my federal and state taxes. So if I just click over here on federal plus state, so F4 plus G4, and I said I'm going to divide that by my gross pay. Here's my gross pay in cell E4. Now, looking at that formula, is there anything I need to do to fix it? Or does it look appropriate? Okay, If you haven't figured it out yet, do not do this, but I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Is our taxes 243% of our gross pay? Well, that doesn't sound right. So I need to go back in and edit my formula. So to do that, I just double click on my formula. It's going to bring me right back into it. It's going to color code everything. What is it I need to do to fix this? I need to look at my order of operations, because right now I have that I'm going to do my division first, because division comes before addition. So I would take my gross pay, I would take my state tax divided by my gross pay and add that to my federal tax. Well, that doesn't make sense. We wanted to add both of our taxes together. So we wanted to add our federal tax and our state tax. So we're going to do that by adding the parentheses so that this is the first thing that happens. Then we will take that number and divide it by the gross pay to find the percentage. So you should have equal parenthesis F4 plus G4 close parenthesis divided by E4. Now whenever I press enter, it looks like it's 24.6%. That's about right for this Excel spreadsheet, because all we have is a federal and state tax, and we're not including Medicare or Social Security in this one. Okay, so next we're ready to go ahead, and we're not going to worry about changing it to a percent. Remember, we're going to do all of our formatting at the end. So our net pay, what did I say our net pay was? The net pay is the amount of money that you actually get to take home in your paycheck. So how would I find out how much money I get to take home? Okay, I would start with the gross pay, and I would subtract my federal tax and my state tax, and whatever's left is what I get to keep. So to do this formula, I'm going to start with equal. I'm going to click on my gross pay, and then there's a couple different ways you can write the formula. Probably the most accepted way would be then to do minus parenthesis federal plus state close parenthesis. So I'm going to take and do my order of operations. I would add my federal and state tax together to find that number, and then I would subtract that from my gross pay, and that's what I'm actually going to get to take home. So it looks like I get to take home $888.345, and it's going to round it differently depending on how wide your column is, but we'll fix all that whenever we do the formatting. Okay, so we've got our formulas in. The best thing to do is we're going to use our autofill handle to copy them down. We worked a lot at the autofill handle in Chapter 1, so we're going to select or highlight all of our numbers here where we can fill it down, which is our gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percentage, and net pay. Remember, whenever you select them, you're going to use the white plus sign to select them. I'm going to come over here to the bottom right-hand corner of the last one where I get my black plus sign, and then I'm just going to drag down. Okay, and all those numbers magically fill in. You're going to notice over here you get this autofill options button. If you click on it, it says you want to copy the cells, you just want to fill with the formatting only, meaning don't copy any formulas or numbers, or and just take the formatting, or do you only want to fill the numbers but not change the formatting? Well, we're really wanting to copy the cells. That's what it did, so we're good with that one. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop this video, and whenever we come back, we're going to figure our total, our max, our lowest, and our average. And there's a couple different ways we can do that, so we're going to do that in a video by itself.